and testing are inseparable. They go side by side. In order to find out whether teaching is effective or not, the individual class teacher needs a feedback mechanism technique to monitor the effectiveness of his teaching. कभी कभी हम बस यूं ही पढ़ाते हुए चले जाएं और हमारे स्टूडेंट्स जो हैं उनको वो ठीक से कॉम्प्रीहेंड नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो फिर टीचिंग का कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है. तो इसलिए क्या होता है, बीच बीच में हम उनसे क्वेश्चंस मालूम करते हैं जिससे कि हमें फीडबैक मिलता रहे कि या दे आर फॉलोइंग द टॉपिक. Well, while on the one hand, the school as a whole requires to know how classes are progressing, on the other hand, the education system of a country needs a way of measuring the progress of the country in general. Thus, teaching and testing are very closely interlinked. There are three components of teaching and testing, and they are teacher, the one who teaches you in your college or in your university, and then you have college, university, and then the last one is country. My dear students, I don't know whether you are aware of it or not. Testing, the word testing is derived from the Latin word testum, which means testing certain metals to confirm to know if there is any element of gold in it. Whereas examination is derived from the Latin word examen, which means scale or balance. An examination aims at realizing a required standard of attainment, while a test aims to inquire in order to see whether the material taught has been learned and understood or not. So this is the basic difference between a test and examination. Now, as you know, testing can be formal as well as informal. Informal tests are conducted in the classroom while the teacher is teaching a lesson or a chapter. Every teacher develops a set of techniques for testing and probing and observing his students, which enables him to know when to slow down his teaching, when to speed it up, when to repeat an item, when to single out an individual for special attention, and so on. These are all informal techniques, while formal tests are an attempt to develop an approach, a method for measuring attainment or progress or ability in language skill. You know, my dear student, this topic is very important for you, not only for the examination point of view, but you also going to take up teaching as your career. So this is going to help you a lot. You would know how to conduct tests, you know how to hold classes. So this has got a practical purpose also for you. So each of these qualities can be assessed in terms of the four basic language skills. Now you remember what are the four basic language skills? Listening, speaking, reading, writing. And what do we call them? LSRWAs. Okay, listening, speaking, reading, writing, and understanding on the assumption that separate attention has been paid to each level of the language. For example, a test of attainment in understanding the spoken language can be used to test the learner's command of the language at the phonological level to discover how far he recognizes the sound contrast of the language. We can also test his command of grammar and lexis. Lexis, you understand? Lexis means words. Okay? So you must have seen, मैंने आपके जो टेस्ट थे, you know, I conducted tests on vowel sounds, I conducted tests on consonant sounds and diphthongs. So like these tests, they were conducted to check your pronunciation. Now my aim was not to check your grammar. We have a separate test on grammar. So they are specific. You know, these tests are held specifically if they want to judge your pronunciation. Then we hold tests on vowel sounds, for example. And if we want to judge your grammar, then we hold tests on parts of speech, for that matter, like are you using prepositions correctly or not, or say for example articles are always very tricky even for those who are very good at English, so they also commit mistakes, so we keep on revising them. Anyway, there are two categories of examination currently available in the world. Yes, do you know what are they?
Subjective type test and objective type.
Subjective type test and objective type test. Yes, yes, very nice. Subjective type test क्या होते हैं? Subjective type test, you know, in such kind of test you have descriptive questions, you have to write essay type answers. And what are objective types? They are MCQs, for example, multiple choice questions. So these tests are conducted even online these days. Subjective type tests are generally the tests which are followed all over the country, especially for conducting regular school, college and university examinations. These type of tests can only test the writing skills. Okay, what do they check? The writing skills. They usually measure the learner's knowledge about the language rather than the language itself. So there is a limitation of these subjective type tests. Dear students, in today's fast-track world, objective type tests have become very popular because they are not only easy to conduct but also for their reliable scores. Scores means like marks. Why are the marks reliable? Why? Because if there are 10 questions and if you have done all the questions right, then you score 10 out of 10. And if you have done only 8 right out of 10, then you get 8 out of 10. So scores are reliable as far as objective tests are concerned. The relevance of objective type tests in India during the last 50-60 years have been modified, expanded, improved, examined and discussed on a wide scale. Many new and high intensified programs for teaching English have been introduced to facilitate learning as a second or say a foreign language. Do you know English is our second language? First language is our Hindi, okay, which is our mother tongue, and second language is English. Modern English language has undergone a change both in theory and practice. Research in applied linguistics, methodology and audiovisual aids have resulted in production of a large body of teaching material which is now available throughout the world. In contrast to the profusion of literature found in the field of language teaching, one is struck and dismayed by the relative poverty of information available in language testing and evaluation. Do you not feel the same? Like, you know, we have got a number of books on language, English language skills, okay, like say how to improve your spoken skills, how to improve your writing skills, but there are very few books written on how to conduct good tests, okay, or say how to conduct examination. So they do not judge your testing skills. And in fact, you know, testing skills, when we talk about testing skills, naturally they are associated with the teachers who teach, because they give tests and they test your writing skills, their spoken skills, but we hardly have any nice material on testing and examination techniques for that matter. We are just following the traditional, the obsolete techniques. Well, many teachers adopted the new methods of teaching English. However, they are at a complete loss when it comes to measuring the competence and performance of their students. The innovative techniques of teaching turn out to be totally theoretical, having no practicality in the given bleak scenario. The result is that often they have to fall back on the traditional methods of language testing. And you know what are the traditional methods of language testing? We have grammar translation method, we have say bilingual method. This we have been following for ages and we continue to follow them because they are the most comfortable, the most convenient ones to follow in our country, the kind of scenario, the kind of situation we have. We do not have say very advanced gadgets, we do not have very advanced labs also, and suppose if even If we have some good gadgets or say good, like audiovisual aids, teachers do not know how to use them properly. So there is a problem is we do not have skilled, say teachers for that purpose. Testing relates to a multitude factors which concern both the quality of teaching given and the learning achieved. Resultantly, one can test the system as well as the student, as a good test reveals as much about the teacher as about the standard, as about the students. So remember this. A good test reveals as much about the teacher as about the student. Like a good teacher only sets good question papers. Okay, a good teacher only asks relevant questions based on the syllabus that he has covered. And the performance of the students also depends upon the teaching, how the teacher taught the students. So this is something interlinked. A good teacher should keep the following points in mind while conducting the test. Okay, so just take a note of them. A good test should carry clear and suitable instructions to both the students as well as the evaluators. May they be about the number of questions, marks of the questions, or the length of the questions. Ambiguities in instructions should be absolutely avoided. I've seen, some students do not understand instructions. Sometimes it is their fault that they don't understand. Sometimes instructions are not clearly mentioned. So they keep asking, sir, like how many questions are we to attempt from section C or section B? So you must have seen this ambiguity shouldn't be there. Instructions should be very clear. There shouldn't be any confusion. And next, a good test should comprise questions only on those areas of language which have already been taught and discussed in the classroom. This is something very important. Like nothing should be out of syllabus and out of the covered portion. Besides, it should be fairly distributed over the entire cover portion of the syllabus. Further, it should judge the actual attainment of the taught areas of the language and not just the memorizing abilities of the students. Sometimes it happens, what do students do? They just mug up, they cram the questions and they reproduce them in the classroom. So their actual, say their IQ level for that matter, or say their, grammar or their actual understanding, their comprehension is not judged. Why? Because they have done very well, they have reproduced the entire thing. How? Since they had crammed it up, they had memorized. So you shouldn't judge just their memorizing abilities, but actual language skills. So for that, objective type tests are very important. So a good test should neither be too easy nor too difficult. It should be a fair mixture of easy, average, and difficult questions so as to locate students with different levels of attainment. Now, dear students, we have a very heterogeneous mixture of students in our classrooms. Some are very good, extraordinary we may say, some are good, and some are even average or say below average. So we cannot ask questions which are very tough because students who are average or below average won't be able to answer. That is why question paper should be set in such a manner as to be comfortable with all levels of students. And even it will be easier for a teacher also to differentiate between the good ones and the average ones. A good test should also take care of the magnitude of the paper. Magnitude, remember the word magnitude you read in Aristotle's Poetics? He talks about magnitude of tragedy. Isn't it so? Okay. Magnitude means length. Yeah, length. So a good test should also take care of the magnitude of the paper. That is to say, it should neither be too short nor too long. If it is too short, students will solve it well before the allotted time and start whispering amongst themselves. And if it is too long, students might fail to attempt the entire paper. I have seen students saying, oh, the paper was very lengthy, we couldn't attempt all the questions, the paper was very lengthy. So this it shouldn't be such. And some students leave the examination hall just in 1 hour. Why? Because the paper was very short and they were smart ones, so they completed the entire paper in 1 hour. Or if you do not allow them to move out of the examination hall, they start whispering with their friends and all. They in a way disturb the class. So the paper should neither be too long nor too short. The length and the level of the paper should be such that it could be attempted in the scheduled time limit even by the average students, and even sparing them with a little time to revise it once. Because I always tell my students that revision is very important. You should spare some time, save some time, say 10 to 15 minutes to revise your answer sheet. Because when you revise it, you find that you have committed some mistakes unknowingly. Like there can be mistakes of punctuation, grammar, for that matter. So, and sometimes you have spelling mistakes also, so you can improve those mistakes. And we may also say that a good test should be easily and fairly accessible. Although this does not pertain to students, it pertains to teachers only. So our test should be easily and fairly accessible. Means you should be able to easily assess it, evaluate it. A teacher should be able to evaluate with ease and perfection. That's very important, because sometimes tests are so complicated, like there are too many sections, and so that's a difficult thing. So it's better that the test should be easily and fairly accessible. The teacher should easily score the marks and all. He shouldn't find any difficulty there, or he shouldn't feel bored, fatigued. Well, here I'm reminded of J.B. Heaton quotation. This is within quote. It is unfortunate that so many examinations in the past have led to a separation of teaching and testing. Both teaching and testing are so closely interlinked and interrelated that it is virtually impossible to work in either fields without being concerned with the other. Okay, now I have tried to put J.B. Heaton's word in my language, but I think I have reproduced the actual sense. All tests are extensions of teaching and learning situations. Okay.